We are off and running once again. My name is Jay Berman. Welcome to the New York Giants Squad Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. It's the bye week for the Giants. What could possibly go wrong? Well, we'll find out.
I'm Patricia Trainer of Locked On Giants, and the Giants have 4 games left. But gosh, just end the season already.
I'm Mark Collins, 2-time Super Bowl champion. I concur. I'm so looking forward to the end of the season.
Let's go, Big Blue. It's the New York Giants squad. Everything New York Giants every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the G-Men. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. The Giants Squad Show starts now.
All right, it's the bye week, and we're all very thankful for that. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Amazingly, it's week 14, and as we said, thank the good Lord, Patricia, that there's a bye week. We can all rest and get ready for the final 4 games. Meanwhile, it was a rough Monday night, calling it the Monday Night Massacre. That's where we'll start. Patricia, it was ugly.
Ugly, I don't think is the word for it. I don't know if there is a word for it. It was a comedy of errors. It was just, you sat there and you're like, what am I watching here? It was almost like the Keystone Cops with some of what we saw. I mean, the field goal that wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm still shaking my head over that one. I mean, the breakdown on special teams, the Jackson Dart taking that hit on the sideline. Abdul Carter. I mean, come on. What are we doing here?
Mark, all yours.
Yeah, it's it was just ugly, and I'm gonna bring the game back from what I saw to what Patricia just said. That the New England Patriots totally out physical the Giants. They got mauled on offense and defense and special teams. Now, played right into that. The Giants, they were abysmal. Phil McConkey was texting. We're going back and forth. Phil's my teammate and the Giants Super Bowl champion as well. We're texting back and forth, and he's going, do you believe this shite? I was going, no, dude, no, this is crazy. So then the field goal kicker who sticks his 9-iron into the turf and totally, it was embarrassing. And a scene out of Charlie Brown, Lucy taking the ball away. That was bad. And it was so embarrassing when your teammates, former teammates, are texting you, feeling the embarrassment that the Giants are going through. And which self-inflicted, it was just bad.
Patricia, you were around them this week. I mean, give us a glimpse of exactly what's going on. I mean, there can't possibly be too much positivity there.
I think at this point, they're just resigned to the fact that, the season is done. I mean, even though there's 4 more games left, it's every man basically for himself in terms of survival. And, what is there to play for? Now, some guys will Brian Burns is still going to go out there and give it his all. Guy's been playing, lights out despite what has happened. Jackson Dart, I believe, still wants to go out there and play lights out. But you just have guys who I got the sense are starting to check out. And that's not good. I mean, look, you're playing for the name on your back. You're playing for the name on the front of the jersey. You're playing for your job for whoever the next head coach is going to be. Why would you check out? And, I questioned this actually a while ago. I said, with one thing after another keep coming up, at what point are these guys going to say, well, I put my body on the line every week. I've got nothing to show for it. Why am I bothering? It's like you just throw up your hands and, it's not a good situation. It's just everybody's just kind of wandering around. They don't have answers. And it's just really not a good situation.
Yeah. And now at this point of the season, these guys are playing not to get hurt. And when you play not to get hurt, you get hurt. And why I say what I mean by that is, if you get hurt at the end of the season, that means you got to come back for the off-season program, all this other stuff, and check in, whatever. Most of the guys now they're starting to pay for incentives in their contracts, interceptions, sacks, whatever that may be. So you're going to see a lot of individual play, which could be good if the team were winning, because that means you're selling out regardless. But when you start doing this day of the season, playing for incentives now, it's making you look, the people will say, well, what was that action before? What was that early in the season? So, I've never been in a situation like that. I think once, 87 year, but that was during the strike season, and, that was a little different. But now the way the players now, and they checked out, I've seen that they're checking out. And the way they're playing, Abdul Carter's situation, I don't know if this kid checked out 2 weeks ago. Patricia, you know more about that. We'll talk about that later on. But it's obviously seemed to me that these guys are really ready to check out or have done so already.
I think what I saw from the Patriots, at least the message from Vrabel before the game, was run fast, hit hard. And it seemed like, Patricia, the Giants were sort of stunned by that. The physicality from New England, it's almost like they weren't ready for it.
The Giants, plain and simple, don't have an identity. The Patriots, they've taken on Mike Vrabel's identity, which is to go out, play hard, keep your foot on the gas, and don't stop until that clock says 0-0 at the end of the fourth quarter. The Giants, right now, what's their identity? They've got a losing identity, which is not what you want. But can you honestly say that they have any kind of identity that they can build on? It's funny. We ask the question every year. We ask it, throughout the season. What's the offense's identity? What's the team's identity? What's the defense's identity? And we're told, hard, fast, smart, tough, disciplined. Do you see any of that? I
Nope.
don't.
No, not at all. Not one bit. We talk about it every time. You look around the NFL, you see a team, look at the Eagles, look at the Chiefs, look at the Patriots. They follow the identity of their coach, right? This is what we do. We'll stop you on defense, we'll score on offense, whatever. That's their identity. And I know I said this day one, even last year. This team has no identity. Usually it's the defense will put the fire out, or the offense can score points, or there's some kind of physical attribute that team brings. Whether they come from behind, they close games out, whatever. The Giants have not had an identity for the last few years. So this is no different. And that's why, we'll talk about it later on, but I'm going to say it now. That's why I say you got to clean the house. You're going to have to start from zero again. I don't care if Kafka has a great identity with relationship with Dart, whatever. No, man, you got to start from zero and move forward.
Perfect segue into Jackson Dart, who seems to be quite reluctant to do what we want him to do, Patricia. And I understand the mentality there. He's tough. He wants to play tough. But you're not going to last a decade under center playing that way.
What Jackson Dart has to understand, and he said after the game, go back and look at my tape. I've been playing this way since high school. I've been playing this way since college. Correct me if I'm wrong. Mark, you can probably attest to this, but isn't the competition at the NFL level a lot better than at high school and at college? Isn't it a lot, you have better athletes who are faster, stronger, bigger. If you keep playing the way you did at high school and in college, you're not going to last. You look at RG3, who was a pretty good example of a guy who was just reckless and fearless and look at how tough I am. Well, what good did it do him? You've got to be smart after a while. And, I look at Patrick Mahomes and how he kind of plays it. And I kind of wish that Dart would get with Patrick Mahomes maybe after the season and just kind of tap into his brain. And What's your thought process? When do you decide to take a hit and when do you decide not to? Because right now this kid is playing and has this attitude of I'm invincible and I'm just going to go for it and let bygones be bygones. And that's not, if you want to have a long career, you're not going to have it if you take that attitude.
Oh, absolutely right. And this is what, a guy like him, and there may be others, but the others seem to learn faster than he's learning right now. This ain't the SEC. It's not the Mountain West. It's not the ACC or whatever. Every player from the worst pro team, NFL team, to the best NFL team, their athletes are 2 to 3 to 5 times better than the starting team on any other college conference. So with that being said, the linebacker, the second team and third team linebacker is probably better than any first team SEC linebacker if you compare them like that. They're faster, they're stronger, and they play to win on the NFL level. They're getting paid. That's how it works. He's got to learn. Now, I don't know if his mother, father, offensive coordinators, or teammate have told him that, hey, man, you got to protect yourself. But the wrong answer, the answer he gave after the game, oh, that's how I play, that's how it is. No, dude, this is NFL. You will not last for long playing this way. You got to protect yourself. I can't tell him. Carl Banks can't tell him. Lawrence Taylor can't tell him. Kafka can't tell him. He's got to learn on his own. You thought he'll learn when he was in the NFL concussion protocol. Hey, man, I got to watch myself. Nope. He comes out, runs to his right, thinking that he's going to run right out of bounds and nobody's going to take a shot. No, if that was me, I'm taking the shot. You're in play. I'm taking the shot. It's up to you to take care of yourself, and you didn't. You got whacked. Hey, man, he's got to learn, and I don't know when it's going to happen, but if it doesn't happen these last 4 weeks of the season, I don't think it ever will.
It's going to happen probably, and I hate to say it, and I'm not wishing this on him, he's going to have to miss more games, and he hates missing games in practice. That's, I hate to say it, experience is going to have to be the best teacher with him because right now his just, it's a double-edged sword. You want your players to be tough, but you want them to be smart, and he's just not being smart right now.
Yeah.
The last thing you want is a defender going after you with a target on your back. And the fact that these defenders now, Mark, know that he's not going to slide or get out of bounds, I mean, that's a big hit coming. They're targeting him.
Yeah, well, Jay, I won't. Let's not call it targeting because that's like they're going after him intentionally. As a defensive player and knowing a defensive mentality, most of us, 98% of us, play the game within the confines of the rules. If he's running the ball and he's not sliding, hey, man, I'm going to take my shot.
Yeah.
It's not trying to take him out of the game. I'm being dirty. That's just what we do. We're going to take our shot legally, and we'll let the chips fall where they may. It's up to him, the quarterback, Jackson Dart, to take care of himself. If he's not going to take care of himself, I'm not going to because I'm trying to win the game. And if that entails me taking a legal hit, legal shot at you, and that gets you out of the game, that gives us a chance to win on the defensive side. So he's got to learn. And as Patricia said, and I concur, hey, man, he's going to have to learn the hard way. He's going to have to miss 4, 5, 6, 7 games, for him to learn. And that's bad.
It's almost like he's, like you said, the only way to teach him is to take games away from him. The games have been taken away from him, and yet he seems to be, Patricia, the only one that doesn't think he has to do what he has to do.
I think he's just trying to feel himself. Look, I think there's a degree, and we kind of saw this with Daniel Jones, where the team was collapsing around him, and Daniel felt, I have to make a play because nobody else is doing it. So in that regard, I kind of understand where Jackson Dart is coming from. But on the flip side, you've got to think long-term. what good are you going to be if you're sitting in the trainer's room while your teammates are out there practicing, or you're left behind because you can't play because you're in the protocol? He's got to find that balance. And I think, he's an intelligent kid. He's coachable. But here's the other thing. What are the coaches telling him? You mean to tell me Mike Kafka, when he spoke to the media after at the game, couldn't say, look, that was a situation where he should have gotten out of bounds? What was Mike Kafka afraid of calling him out for that? I mean, it's honest feedback. I think everybody felt that way. What are they telling this kid? Are they sending him mixed messages that maybe he thinks, okay, yeah, people are going to talk about it, but my coaches love it, so I'm just going to do it. And that, to me, is the biggest concern.
Seems to be a lot of miscommunication from top to bottom. And the fact that they haven't cleaned house already seems weird. We'll get to that. Let's take our first break. We have to do Abdul Carter and the Joe Shane presser. So much to get to. We'll do that next here on the New York Giants Squad Show. All right, let's tell you about Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players' stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates. That includes California, Texas, and Georgia. I've been using Prize Picks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs. It keeps every game exciting. I like picking my favorite players like Mahomes and Steph Curry, 2 of the best, to see how my predictions play out. The new Stacks feature is a game changer as well. You can now pick more on Steph's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves my lineup from a loss. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, we are back, and obviously plenty to get to. Patricia, Abdul Carter benched again, and as much as we can't understand why Jackson Dart doesn't slide, I think we're equally surprised with the fact that Abdul Carter cannot make a meeting on time.
I'm equally surprised that the excuse is made for him, and I'm disappointed in that. Look, let me share a little something here. There are video boards all over the Giants football area, the facility, which is the lower level of the Quest. Those video boards had the daily schedule. So there is zero excuse, as far as I'm concerned, to be late to a meeting, to be late to a practice. Zero. Now, in this case, it was reported by The Athletic that Abdul Carter wasn't sure if he should be in a special teams meeting. So he took, he said, oh, well, I'm not sure, so I'm not going to go. Don't you think you owe it to yourself to ask if you're not sure? I mean, if I'm not sure what to do on my job, I'm going to ask somebody who would know and say, hey, what am I supposed to do? Do you need me here? That's what you're supposed to do. That's what a responsible person does. And then for Abdul Carter to get up there after the game and say that, blank happens. I was like, dude, really? That's your excuse? And then the other thing that really annoyed me, and I think Carl Banks spoke to this as well, Abdul Carter is sitting on the bench during his punishment, huddled up, not engaged, can't be bothered. Can we talk about poor optics here? I mean, I was just appalled by that. Once is a mistake, twice is a pattern, and it's been reported that this has been a pattern with him, and that's disappointing.
It makes so many people look bad. It makes Dable look bad. It makes Kafka look bad. It makes the leaders on the defense look bad. Mark, you must be angry that went down.
Yeah, because now we talked about a few weeks ago when he missed a meeting or whatever, and I didn't know much about it, but obviously this has been going on for a while, right? So, yeah, and when you're a rookie And if you don't know if you're on a special team, most rookies are, they tell you, when I played and coached, you go to the meeting, make them kick you out. Make them tell you, hey, you're not on this meeting, go out. Then you go. You don't take it upon yourself to excuse yourself and say you're not on it. And him not being engaged while he was sitting on the sideline is the dumbest and most selfish thing a player can do. You're telling everybody, I don't give a damn. I'm going to sit here and when they need me, I'll go in. That's wrong. That is not just his fault. That's the coach's fault. And that's some of the players who he's playing with, not holding him accountable. That's unexcusable. And, as a Giant fan and former player, you got to ask yourself, when doing the interviewing process, doing the draft, when they bring these players in and all this stuff comes out, you talk to the player, talk to the coaches, this must have come up somewhere at Penn State. Is he a prima donna? Is he a team player? What is he? Some of these things had to come up during these interviews. And for the Giants not to know this, or knowing it and taking them anyway, and not addressing it, not cutting it in the bud, nixing the bud in the beginning, that's on the organization and the coaching staff. So you take them anyway. The same thing plays out as it did in college. You saw it happen in the first couple of weeks of the season, I guess. Now it's true, and it's still going on. Well, you get what you get. So you can't complain about it now. You knew this was coming because they told you, and you still brought him into the team, and he's doing it now. So this is what you get.
And they're trying, for what it's worth. Brian Burns, I know for a fact, has tried talking to him. Dexter has tried talking to him. There's only so much you can do. I mean, if it's falling on deaf ears and the kid's saying, okay, yeah, I hear you. And Carter is just, he's okay. They say 21. He's one of the youngest players, if not the youngest. Mm-hmm. But he's an adult. This is a job. Don't be acting like you're LT because you're not LT.
No.
LT might have been able to get away with that stuff back in the day. You're not LT. I'm sorry.
And that's funny that you bring that up, because when he was huddled with his jacket on the bench in the first quarter, the first thing I thought of, Mark, he asked for 56, which makes it look even worse now. And thankfully, LT said no.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to put him and Lawrence in the same breath, to be honest with you, because he don't deserve it. So I'm not. This guy, before you try to compare yourself with any of the greatest linebackers in Giant history, you gotta show up to damn meetings first, right? You have to do something. Have a complete season, for one. Secondly, play like you care. Then we can start talking about down the road who you want to be. But you got to be yourself first. And so far, from what I've seen, he hasn't done enough to even merit being mentioned in that man's name. So I'm not going to do that. But it's bad. And I know we're pounding on, beating the dead horse, really, because the season is bad. And when you're losing, everything gets exposed. Winning is like a disinfectant of everything. Oh, we're winning. But when you lose, all the smells come out, all the dirt comes out. And this is one of the dirtiest things that's coming out. So, and it's bad. So it's that.
Patricia, I would assume, one, reporters are tired of asking about it, and two, players are tired of being asked about Carter and all these things. It has to be tiring.
It is. Here's a sad fact. You go back and you look at some of the transcripts. How many actual football questions do you see on those transcripts? Not a whole lot. So it's not about, okay, what do you think of your matchup with so and so, or what do you think of the team and the way your opponent is going? No, it's about Jackson Dart not protecting himself. It's about Abdul Carter's effect. It's about this, that, and the other thing. It's like, I hate to say it, it's almost become like a gossip type of situation where we've lost now we're not talking about football anymore. We're talking about all these problems because they're just so big and they've taken over the narrative.
Mark, it is amazing considering where you were, what part of the Giants history that you were in. This is just discouraging. I mean, and not only that, this didn't just happen. This has been happening.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It probably started in college with him, and everything else. The whole culture of the Giants over the last few years has been bad. It's embarrassing. I from a personal level, I still bleed blue. People know that. But man, whenever you start talking about everything but what's happening on the field, that even makes it worse. We could talk. We could beat that horse about the Giants' record, play calling, offense, defense, and we will. But when the first questions that comes out of the media, the Patricia's and media people's mouth questions, hey, why did this guy show up in the meeting? Why this person doing this? Whatever. That's bad because, you want to be known about the product that you put on the field and how you're playing why you're playing on the field. But the questions first asked, why'd you miss a meeting? Well, why'd you do this? And why'd you go to a WWE, a MMA wrestling event? Stuff like that. Is that the culture we living in now? Is that the culture of the Giants? To me, right now, yeah, because they suck. But I would rather go, man, judge me on what I'm doing on the field than my off the field antics or not showing up for meetings.
All right, so organizational woes and direction. Obviously, we're immersed in that. But Patricia, how do we see the light at the end of the tunnel, considering where we are now and considering we don't know who's going to make these decisions next year?
I think you're going to need a house cleaning. I hate to say it because that means you got to start from scratch and tear things down all over again. But what other choice do you have? You get a head coach in here who's not going to take any, garbage. Get a part, if there's another Parcells out there, get him in here. Or a Coughlin, or, a Mike Tomlin clone, or even a Brian Flores type of clone. You get somebody in here who's going to hold these guys accountable, who's not going to put up with the BS that has been going on in this locker room. All right. Now, the question is who's going to lead that search? Now, ownership has come out and said Joe Schoen will do it. I'm not convinced Joe Schoen is on safe ground. I think what has happened, and this is just a guess here on my part, unfortunately, John Mara is dealing with cancer. He does not have, and I've dealt with cancer, so I can kind of speak to this. He probably doesn't have the strength to deal with, okay, let me go and vet potential head coaching candidates. So Joe, as long as you're employed, you handle that while, John fights this terrible disease. But is Joe Schoen going to be the guy who, is going to help fix this culture when he's been just as much involved in some of the mistakes that have torn this franchise further to shreds? I'm not convinced that that's going to be the case.
All right. Very interesting. And that's where we have to go to next, because Joe Schoen's press conference, to me, was less than dazzling. We'll get into that next. A real quick break, just a 10-second break, and we'll be right back. All right, here we go, halfway home. And as we said, Joe Schoen spoke for, I guess, the first time since the season started. Patricia, again, it wasn't impressive. I don't even know what he was supposed to say. He could have been a little bit more forthcoming. But that being said, it felt like dead man walking.
I understand your point, Jay. And, for those who don't catch that, how many times did Joe Shane say, I understand the question?
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, Joe Shane, he's a nice guy. I like him as a person. I do believe he works hard. I mean, I've known of general managers who have sat on their duffs and who haven't gone out and scouted and just kind of let everything kind of come to them. So those are some of his good qualities. But that being said, there have been mistakes made along the way. And he's admitted to them. He says, look, I'm not batting 1,000. And we can go back and we can look at some of the biggest mistakes. But here's, from the bigger picture perspective, something that I had my doubts about when he was hired and then Brian Dable was hired. You had a first-time GM and a first-time head coach. Where were the checks and balances in that relationship? And just watching how that relationship kind of evolved, it was almost as though they were equal partners instead of one being the boss of the other. And I when I saw that, I said, okay, what's going to happen if things start to fall apart? Who's going to hold who accountable? And now that, you see Brian Dable's out of a job, Shane Bowen's out of a job, but Joe Shane isn't, when they were all kind of brought in together, it just doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't. That's why Shane's got to go too. But no, the Giants have tried so many different ways over the last 10 years or so to fix this. And they need to bring in a coach who has a history of winning, a history of owning and having complete autonomy, of building a staff and winning teams. So some of the coaches you mentioned, Patricia, I agree 100%. I don't want to see another SEC or ACC upstart guru genius or a coordinator I don't want to see that shit. That stuff. I don't, because it's hard to watch. Give me somebody like a Mike Vrabel, a guy who could build an organization, who came from the Belichick tree. Give me who else? The guy from Denver. Give me a coach like that. Give me somebody who can build from the Parcells era. Give me some coach with some stability. I'm glad Lane Kiffin signed with LSU. I don't want that anymore. I don't want that. Give me somebody solid who can get it done. Give me a good general manager who can build a team, who draft well, and the draft picks stay with the team for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years. I want a cornerstone quarterback. I think they have that. Give me somebody who could do it right. The Giants' way of the last 4, 5, 8, 9 years, it's been abysmal.
And here's one more point I'll make about Joe Shane, and I've made this point before. As a first-time GM, from what I can gather, he's got a very big group around him, advising him. You've got Dennis Hickey, you've got Tim McDonald, you've got Chris Mary, you've got Chris Rossetti, Brandon Brown. That's 5 guys right there. Then you've got the head coach, and I don't know how many other people. When you have that many voices in your ear, doesn't that muddy up the process?
Yeah.
I mean, it's better to have a smaller circle, I would think. And I kind of get it. Chris Mara, Tim McDonald, they're part of ownership. They're not going anywhere, despite what fans are calling for. That being said, why do you need to have this big committee advising you when everybody's going to have a different opinion? And now you're sitting there going, well, gee, should I go with point A or point B or point C? And 9 times out of 10, you're becoming, what's that expression? Paralysis by analysis, I think it is.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening, I think.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
No, I agree. I mean, all those voices in your head, and they're micromanagers. So every move you make, it's probably coming from them. You don't know. But, Joe Shane's he should have, I think it's too late now, have complete ownership, autonomy to make decisions. If that's been the case, then he's failed, because since his tenure, the team hasn't done anything. So you are what your record says you are. that's why I think he should go.
You know, the Pats stunk last year. Vrabel is proof that a coach can turn things around. That, of course, now we can't have Vrabel. But Patricia, that just goes to show if you pick the right guy, it can work.
Sure it can. I mean, look at what's going on in Chicago too.
Yeah.
It absolutely can work. And look, I get it. Every coach has to start out somewhere. I mean, Bill Parcells, when he first started out, he hadn't had NFL head coaching experience. He worked his way up. And when Bill Parcells became true to himself, that's when things started turning around. Instead of Bill Parcells, I think the first couple of years of his career here, he was trying to be something he wasn't, because that was kind of what was being dictated. And when he finally said, the heck with this, I'm just going to be me. Look at what Giant fans were able to enjoy during the 1980s. And, the other factor, we mentioned the Joe Shane factor. George Young, when he came in, had complete autonomy over all things football, from the coach to the players to everything. I don't think there's been a GM since George Young who has had that. The closest, I think, was Ernie Accorsi, who had some success. But I know Jerry Reese didn't have it. I don't think Dave Gettleman had it. And I know that Joe Shane doesn't have it. Because everything, at the end of the day, if Joe Shane remains, he's not going to be the one that hires the head coach. It's going to go to ownership to make the final call. When George was here, George had that autonomy.
So the question is, how do you fix it? If that's the issue, no matter who the general manager is, you might as well keep Joe Shane then.
You have to get somebody in who you trust to make that decision, and who, I don't know. Remember, when George Young came in here, he was recommended by
the league.
Roselle, because the Mara family couldn't agree on a guy. Mm-hmm. So I don't think the situation is the same. I think, John Mara and Steve Tisch, and now, oh gosh, I forgot the lady's name. My apologies. The new co-owner that they just hired, I forget her name.
Koch, right?
Koch.
Koch. Sorry.
Yes.
Koch, yeah.
As far as I can tell, they all get along. But, you're not going to have the NFL stepping in and saying, okay, hey, Giants, we're going to recommend this GM candidate for you. And, oh, by the way, he's going to want total autonomy. There has to be, in my opinion, slim down the circle around the GM so that you don't have 50 million voices in your head muddying up decisions. And, I think for the most part, John Mara and Steve Tisch have given the GMs that they've had a degree of autonomy, as long as it doesn't, they're not bringing in somebody who's got a criminal record or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, the GM, it's up to him to kind of, who can I really lean on while I'm trying to make these decisions? And he also has to have a degree of conviction. There are times when I've sensed that Joe hasn't necessarily had that degree of conviction on certain personnel moves, and he's had to be talked into certain things along the way. And that you can't have that.
If the coach relies on the GM and the GM relies on the owner, my question is for John Mara, who's a sick man, who does he rely on, Mark?
Nobody.
Right.
That's what I was going to say. So, if you guys, if the owners and the underlings from the Koch family to everybody else, the other Mara family underneath, if they can't come together on who to hire, who polices or police, basically, who's going to make the decision? So in that star chamber of ownership of who they're going to come together to make a choice of a general manager, if they're going to make a change, how do they vote on it? How do they come to a decision? What's the parameters? How much power do we give this guy? Who, a woman, a person? What do we do? So, and it's bad for me to say this to a point. I would not be surprised if they keep Joe Shane then. I wouldn't be surprised, because if you can't come together on what general manager you want, how much power you're going to give him, yada, 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 they're going to say the hell with it. Let's just keep what we got and see what happens. Now, based on his record, that's the wrong move. But, and I'm not trying to backslide on what I say, because what I say, I stand by what I say. If you get the right coach in, if you get a coach like a strong backing as a winner and blah, 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 that coach has got to come in saying, look, this is what I did. This is what I do. If you won't give me that much, I'm not your guy. Go get a SEC or another ACC coach or another general OC from a DC from another team. Those young kids, the analytical people to run your team. I'm not your guy. Then you get what you get, and hopefully it works out. So I don't know, man. I don't know if they'll keep Joe, but it seems like they will if they can't come to agreement if we should keep him or let him go.
Mark, to your point about who's policing the police, remember, there are other members of the family involved from the ownership side, not just on the Mara side, but also on the Tisch side.
Yeah.
You don't think they're not going to have a say in all this?
Yeah.
And that goes back to my point of there's a lot of different voices with a lot of different opinions. So how do you kind of say, okay, whose opinion do we put more weight on as opposed to who is just, talking just to hear themselves talk?
Yeah. And back in the day, when the league stepped in, that was mid-'80s. And the reason the league stepped in, because before the big TV money, New York was it. And you needed the Giants to be winnable and stuff like that, to have some stability to sell the TV contracts and whatever. It's a little different now, but still, everybody wants New York to win, because I think the league is better when the Giants are winning than the way they look now.
Agreed. I think that's the best point any of us have made, is that the NFL is better when the Giants are better. Now, if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, you might resent that. But Patricia, that is the truth, whether you like it or not.
Absolutely. I mean, New York is what? The biggest market, the biggest media market? How embarrassing. And especially, just to kind of expand this a little bit, the Jets have been awful. All right. And then you look at the rest of the sports teams in the area. The Knicks, you never know what you're going to get with them. The Mets have been awful. The Yankees, they've had some success, but, not I think what a lot of people were looking for. The Rangers are not, they've had their struggles. The Devils too. The Giants have been like the crown jewel of all these franchises because they've been around the longest. So when they're not doing well, it just casts a pall over the whole New York sports scene. And, it's like you're not capitalizing on some of the things that you could be capitalizing on if you had some success there.
It's amazing that all these people got together and said, you know what? Dable's got to go, but Shane has to stay, Mark. I find that amazing that half a dozen guys got in a room and said that.
I know. But I can't even explain it. And I can't give you a educational thought on what you just said, because I can't. I can make some crap up, but I can't. It's just unbelievable. It's just because you are what your record says you are. You are who your draft picks say you are, and you are what you brought to the table. And in the 4 years, in that window span that he's been here, it's not very good. How he stays is baffling.
It's a case of which came first, the chicken or the egg. Is it the coaching and lack of player development? Or is it that the guys that, were brought in by the GM? Which is the lesser of the evils? Yeah. That's how I think they see it. They're like, look, we've got talent, but the coaching staff, why are guys regressing in their second and third years? Why aren't we advancing as a team? Despite having all this talent, is it that the coach is not blending it all together, bringing it all together into a cohesive unit? That's why I think Dable and eventually Shane Bowen were dismissed, and Joe Shane is being kept for now. But do I think Joe Shane is going to be here next year? I don't think we can say that with 100% certainty.
Agree completely. In fact, gun to my head, I would say he's probably gone, but that might be wishful thinking. We have one quick break to take, and then we'll close things out with player motivation in the final 4 games and obviously bye week goals as well. We'll do that next. All right, final block of the show. Patricia alongside Mark, alongside Jay. Bye week goals. Mark, we'll start with you. Obviously, this comes late in the season, and it obviously comes in a situation that nobody wants to be in. But that being said, there are bye week goals. What should they be for a 2-win team with a bye in December?
Just show some flipping heart.
Yeah.
Just play. I mean, don't play not to get hurt. I know you're playing for your incentives. I get it. Cool. I'm with that. But stop embarrassing yourselves. Go play. Play with heart. Play with determination. Play for your family. Play for your teammates, which I don't think the teammates going to happen because they're just a mess right now. But show some damn respect for yourself and for the team. It's just it's heart-wrenching watching these guys. These guys, and it's not about the money. Everybody talks about how much money they make. It's not about the money. Pride. I know, and I use myself as an example because that's all I have. But when I wear this shirt, I wear it with pride because I did something there. I won championships there. I still got fans there. I believe in the organization. It's prideful for me. So when I watch those guys and don't see that same pride, it's heart-wrenching. Play for pride, play for self, and that's all I got.
Patricia, you've been in that room all year long. Have things changed at all? I mean, do you get the feeling that guys are really crushed, or is it just business as usual?
I think for some it's business as usual, but not enough.
Right.
I think there are some guys, and I hate to say it, that are going through the motions at this point, that are making business decisions. And, there's nothing to play for. Look, there's, or at least they're, as far as they're concerned, there's no playoffs to play for. But that's the wrong attitude to take because you do have something to play for. I know it sounds like loser talk when you say play for pride, but do you really want to be labeled as a guy who half bakes it? Do you really want to be labeled by the next head coach as, oh, you're not good enough for my team? So there is something to play for. But to some of these guys, they just look at it and they say, how many days until I can hit the beach down in, Acapulco or wherever?
Cancun.
Cancun, exactly. So, and it's unfortunate, but, there are guys in that locker room who do still care. Dexter Lawrence is playing with an elbow injury that I suspect has been bothering him all year long. It's the only explanation I can come up with why he's fallen off a cliff. He still cares. He could just easily say, you know what? I'm hurt. Put me on IR. I'm done. Brian Burns is banged up. You see him quitting? No. Jackson Dart, he's not quitting. So you do have guys that are out there giving it their all, but just not enough, in my opinion.
If Shane is sort of, trying out, if you will, to keep the job, Kafka has an audition as well, Mark. And to be honest, to be fair to the truth here, I never thought he was going to be the permanent head coach. That being said, they're still calling it an audition. Does he have a chance of being the coach?
Hell no. No.
Agreed.
No, he doesn't. And as far as Shane trying out, his tryout started 4 years ago, and we already talked about that. I think he should have gone. But Kafka has not shown head coaching qualities to me. Now, we know, and I know in a nutshell, the season has not gone the way we thought it would go. And injuries have something to do with it. And I'm not trying to exclude that. But if the same problems consist before Dable left and Kafka was still there, well, I don't see a lot of players playing for Kafka. You know, I don't see them raising their game up and saying, Patricia, you're in the locker room. I have not heard anything of how any player is saying, you know what, Mike deserves a shot because blah, 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 whatever. I'm not hearing that. And Patricia, maybe you heard some stuff like that they're playing for this coach or not. I don't know. But they're not playing for him based on the last 2 games I've seen since he's taken over, that they raised the level of play or the attitudes in the locker room have changed. Players are still missing a meeting, late for meetings. All that stuff is still going on. So, so far, it's not looked good for him to get the job.
Mark, what's going on with Kafka is he's basically trying to clean up a mess.
Yeah.
Well, it's not really, they'll call it an audition, but when you have to clean up the previous guy's mess and you can't, there was only so much Kafka could change. So it's really not a fair audition to say that. And the guy is doing the best he can. Now, do I think he's got a shot of retaining the position? No, I don't. But it's also an audition for him, I guess, for the other teams that might be looking for a head coach.
Yeah.
What can you do if you were given the opportunity to build a program from scratch? But it's a hard position for Kafka to be in when you have to clean up somebody else's mess.
Well, I agree.
Yeah,
no,
go ahead.
I agree. And he's basically a lame duck. I got it. And just as I said before, no matter you fire the defense coordinator or the offense coordinator or the head coach or whatever, nothing's going to change because you can't change the playbook. You can't change on either side, offense and defense. You can't change the playbook. Can you change the culture? Yes, to a point you can. I just haven't seen him do that yet. And that's why I said I have not heard of a player saying, we're going to play this game for Mike Kafka this season. We're going to finish strong for him because we believe in him. As an offensive player or a defensive player, you sit in the meeting room, and let's say this happened on the Bill Parcells. Your defensive coordinator has certain qualities that can resonate through a whole team. Same with the offensive coordinator. It resonates through a whole team. That's why teams play well for those players, those coaches. If this happened on the Parcells, I would know, hey, Belichick can run this thing. He'll take over. I will play for him. I've seen it happen before. And hearing stuff with Buddy Ryan and Chicago Bears, when he was with Chicago, going to Philadelphia, some of his attributes got him promoted to a head coach. Cool. I seen it happen in Chicago and Philly. So, he has a mess to clean up, but not one player on the offense side of the ball, from what I've seen, and Patricia, maybe you have, because you're in the locker room, have said, hey, we're gonna raise the level for Kafka because we know his style can resonate through the whole team. I haven't heard one player say it. I don't know if Jackson Dart said something like that. I don't know, but I don't know if any other player said anything about that.
Not really, from what I can remember.
So, no. So, that's why I say his tenure or his internship as being the interim coach, it's not going well, because when you don't have your players on either side of the ball saying, "Hey, we're gonna show these guys this whatever. We're gonna win for him," and even Kafka, when he took over as interim coach, to me, when I saw the presser, I didn't see a coach, thumping his chest. You know what? We're gonna get it right. We're gonna do it this way. No, I just saw a guy going, okay, well, status quo to a point, and let's see what happens. That's what I saw. So once again, when you do stuff like that, you get what you get. So.
All right. Well, Patricia, you sent us a note before the show about realistic expectations. And when you did, I was so thankful, because I started to think about truly what are expectations or what should they be? And Patricia, I have no clue other than just winning a game.
Yeah, I mean, look, at least be competitive. And, they've been competitive in games only to blow it. This last game, they were not competitive.
Right.
So, look, they're facing 4 teams. And if I'm not mistaken, amongst the 4 teams, the record is not very good. If you combine the record, these are, I think it's like, I don't remember the exact number, but I know the record's not good. There are some opportunities here to finish strong. Not that it's going to help. And I'm sure there's going to be people out there who say, look, at this point, just lose, get the high draft pick and call it a day. But I've never been a fan of the tanking concept. And I know the Mara family and the Tisch family aren't fans of it either. And if you're an athlete, I would imagine you're not a fan of it either, because, why are you going through the whole week of lifting and recovery and studying and meetings and all this stuff just to tank? It's not going to happen. I don't see it happening. So what is there to play for? Playing for your job, plain and simple. You don't think that, especially the free agents, you don't think they're going to, when they hit free agency, other teams are going to look and say, hey, you dogged it there for the Giants. So what do you just show up when things are good? I don't know. I mean, the Giants, they have to pull it together and see if they can't win a couple of these last 4 games. And is it doable? Yes. Will they do it? That's the big question. But, if they lose to the Raiders, who I think are worse off,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I think I might abstain from social media for a week.
Well, this is the easiest part of the schedule too. And we talked about the schedule and finding wins of this 4-game pack. Now, you don't know this before the season starts, but these 4 games, Washington, Minnesota, Vegas, and Dallas, who's better now. But this is where there should be a win, Mark.
Yeah, and I still think they'll beat the Raiders. And let me back up a little bit. First of all, as far as players don't tank and teams don't tank. They don't. They don't. That's a term that's always used. Secondly, if that was the case, or was the case, the Giants don't have to tank anything. They don't, because they're playing crappy anyway. Just keep playing the way you want to play. You're going to pick where you want to pick. So they're not tanking. They tanked a while ago. They're not good. But anyway, so yeah, I still think the Raiders, they're very gettable. What is that, Minnesota?
Yeah.
Gettable. But these guys just gotta play. And the chip's gonna fall where they may. You lose these all 4 of these games, you are what you are. You are what your records say you are. You're a crappy team. You don't get a high draft pick. You win these games, great. You should, because you're doing your job by going and competing. Just compete, do the best you can, and I'm sure, knowing as a former player, the last thing I ever worry about is, if I'm on a losing team, is where the team picks in the draft, because that means, number one, they're picking in the draft probably to replace your ass. So don't worry about that. So you should be playing to win, and hopefully, if you're on the team next year, great. But your audition for other teams, the other 31 teams, starts now. Pretty much started when Dable got fired. So you're auditioning for a job for the other 31 teams as well.
Patricia, let's just focus real quick before we get out of here. 3 of the 4 games are home. Now, one of the things I look at when the schedule comes out is how many home games at the end, because that's where you want them. Well, we got them now. I'm thinking that's not what Mara wants, just because there could be some boos.
Not to mention, you're going to see a lot of fans from the other teams in the stadium.
Oh, yeah.
Especially, you're going to see Dallas fans out in droves. I mean, I would imagine you'll see a lot of Viking fans out in droves. Washington fans will travel up. I mean, these are short distances if you think about it. Not what you want to see. But because the season was going down the tubes, fans probably said, you know what? It's winter time. It's around the holidays. I don't need the aggravation. Let me sell my tickets. So here we are. It's not really, I mean, it's a home game in that it's at MetLife Stadium, but is it a home game? The last 2 games have not been.
No.
I mean, when you hear the Giants offensive linemen say, we had to go to a silent count in our own stadium.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Yeah. That's not good. That's not good at all.
No, that's not good.
It's sad. I mean, but, it's what you get when you lose. This is what you get. We can't complain. We can't complain. I mean, I was going to say there'll be some no-shows there, but you're right. There's going to be a lot of people coming in town to watch the game because the Giant fans are not going to show up and they're going to buy the other tickets. And people are going to try to recoup their money that they spent early on season tickets to recoup their money. So that's the business. That's NFL capitalism from the fan perspective at its finest.
All right, no show on Sunday. We get to pick up the pieces, get the week off. But in a week, we will be back previewing the Washington Commanders. For Patricia and Mark, I'm Jay. Enjoy the bye week. We'll see you soon.